Welcome everyone. This is episode 22 of the Transmaxxing podcast, and today's topic is food and exercise. There is this misconception some people have that living healthy and exercise is difficult, very hard, or requires all this effort. It really isn't the case. We will show that it's actually very easy to find nice foods to eat, that they are convenient, taste good, and gives you all the nutrients you need. There is obviously a lot of different opinions regarding what types of food you should eat, what is healthy, what isn't healthy, and all that. But there are some things we do know for sure. For example, if you do not eat anything, you will face issues, obviously, you will starve. And if you eat way too much calories, you will also face issues with obesity and all those health issues, and this is very well known. The more controversial aspect is what type of food groups that are best for you. Should you do a meat-heavy diet or a diet with less meat? What we do know also is that you need to make sure you get the essential nutrients for your body. Half is a bit uncertain, but you need to get the body the stuff it needs to be healthy. You also need to avoid things that are clearly harmful, and this is mostly non-food stuff or things like alcohol.
A lot of artificial ingredients can be not very savory, and things that aren't technically artificial, such as high fructose corn syrup. The insulin response causes a large drop in blood sugar, pretty shortly after you consume it, which drives your hunger and drives you to eat more.
Yes, carbohydrates is one of the most problematic out of all the macronutrients just because we refined it so much and it makes our insulin spike and it makes us much more hungry more often. So that's why it's better to have more unrefined, more whole grain stuff, have actual fruits, even more so than fruit juices, because even that's not so great for you.
It's often better to eat it in the original state, where you don't do all this processing, because then you get all the nutrients. And you don't have to worry about any weird additive being bad for you. I'm not saying that they are, it's just that, for sure that if you eat grapefruit, for example, you will not have issues with anything strange. I guess the main thing is maybe the sugar in it. As long as you don't eat too much, you shouldn't have a problem, and you will feel that when you eat it, that when you eat one package of it, around 500 grams, you will feel satisfied, or at least I feel satisfied at the end, and I don't want more.
General weight loss tip for a lot of people can just be stick to mostly water, maybe a glass of milk or a glass of juice every day. But if you stick to the rest water, you'll have a very good time and you'll most likely lose weight. Especially if you struggle with constantly drinking soda in your daily life and other things. Like sugar in your coffee. I don't know, there's just a lot of crazy beverages out there. And it's if you constantly drink flavored water, you're likely going to be consuming so much sugar over the day just from that.
Yeah, this is something that maybe I sometimes overlook because I never drink that stuff. But obviously there are people who constantly drink Coca-Cola or similar.
Alcohol's another big bad one for that as well. It's also even more caloric dense than carbohydrates, being 7 per gram instead of 4 per gram. So you're more likely to gain more weight as well if you do drink and eat normally. Drinking's just so unhealthy.
All your low carb alcohol options, like your low carb beers and that, are very misleading for this reason, because you can reduce the carbs, but your body still metabolizes the alcohol. I'd like to loop back to another thing. Large amounts of polyunsaturated fats and consuming trans fats cause inflammation and can strengthen your insulin response, which again leads to the issue where your blood sugar will crash more easily.
And then of course you might face issues with diabetes if you do that too much.
You may be wondering, like, as a viewer, how do you, like, figure out all these nutrients and stuff? Well, in most first world countries, there is a nutritional fact on, like, most of your products, and you're able to read it just, like, on the bag. If you don't have that luxury, or if it's, like, fast food and stuff, you can even just look it up on Google, and it should give you a pretty general answer to give you what you need.
There's this website I use, Calorie King. It's got listings for all sorts of different foods, including like fresh foods like potatoes and steak and whatnot, and it gives you all the micros and macros of the food. It's free to use, and you simply just search what you want.
Yeah, one thing to look out for, I like eating nuts. You have to be careful because they are super calorie dense. It can go up to 700 calories per 100 grams.
Yeah, that is a lot.
It's very nice though to have it because you don't have to do any processing with nuts. It contains nutrients that are often good for you.
They're also reasonably protein dense, aren't they? Proteins and fats.
Yes, nuts are a pretty good source for a protein. They are pretty high in fat, which is a big thing to note, and like there's a difficulty in getting protein in a lot of like diets nowadays because meat tends to be a little bit more expensive than like carbs and other foods. So you may struggle to be able to get it. Try to like think of like usually there's like certain meats that are like more localized and like you get cheaper prices on them. For example, if you're like on a coastal region, you're more likely to get seafood for cheap. As if you live on mainland, you're more likely to get like beef and chicken for a lower price.
Yeah, what I noticed is that often the cheaper meat option works just fine, and often those expensive meats that they are selling, you're just wasting your money. And I have tried like multiple times very expensive moose meat, and every time I've been disappointed. It was basically throwing away your money for nothing. Sure, I do like the taste of meat from wild animals, but I don't think the type of meat from that animal really matters. I think it's mostly a taste preference, what you like, and some people, or probably most people, just want to stick to the muscle meat and not the organs, but that's more about like a preference thing than nutrition. In terms of like nutrients, there's often more nutrients in the organs than in the muscle meat anyway.
Yeah, it just tends to be certain things that are concentrated in the organs, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to watch out for that because sometimes you can potentially even get too much of that vitamin or whatever because the concentration is so high.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll cause even more issues. Most red meats are quite similar in their nutritional profile and all very dense in micronutrients.
Yeah, it's a very nice food to add to your diet because it makes everything so easy. You get pretty much everything you need. There is maybe certain things you will miss out on. So often it's best to combine some meats with some fruits to get pretty much everything you need.
Yeah, absolutely. I love my berries. I eat raspberries every day. They're really good for you. Antioxidants and whatnot, low in sugar. So
Yeah, I think one advantage with berries is that the issue with a lot of plant foods you buy is that they have low nutrient density because of farming practices, like especially not organic when they just throw fertilizer on it, and sure you get more, but you're not really getting more nutrients from it that way. So it maybe fills up your stomach and gives you calories, but the issue with plant foods in general, like even organic, is that often the nutrient density isn't the best, but with those berries and other wild plant products, they're often higher in quality.
it's also very easy to grow your own food. People so often overlook that. Just growing a couple things in your garden can be both good for your mind and for your body.
Yeah, and if you have like eaten your own potatoes, for example, the quality is miles better than anything you can find in the store. Like even if you try to find like the best organic or whatever, it's still nowhere near as good as what you can grow yourself, which is a shame. There isn't really a premium segment. There is like fake premium where you pay money, and it's kind of wasteful because you pay all that extra money and you're still getting subpar quality.
Yeah,
Farmers
truly.
markets are not
Yeah.
option.
Yes, exactly. Truly, if you want like more organic stuff, you would probably have a better chance going to a farmer's market, and it's likely to be even more cheaper.
And if you're near country areas, I don't know if it's really a thing as much in the States and whatnot, but in Australia, if you're near a farming area, you can just go for a drive down a dirt road and you'll see food for sale on the side of the road, fresh food straight from the farm.
Yeah, and then you can shop around, you can try different farms until you find someone with the quality you're looking for. But it isn't really about saving money, it's more about trying to find the best quality you can.
Yeah, absolutely, and the taste too. The taste of a vegetable between two different farms can be huge. Like honey is not a vegetable, I know this, but there's about 3 or 4 honey farms near me, and they all taste different. They process their honey differently, and there's one that I'll go to every time because it just has the best tasting honey.
Do you eat any green vegetables like broccoli or kale?
Broccoli is actually my favorite vegetable. It goes very well. Just throw it in the oven, chuck some fat on it, crack some salt onto it, and that's it.
Yeah, and
Barely have to cook it.
yeah, this is a big advantage because one big problem with a lot of recipes and things that are promoted is that if you have to work a lot in preparing the food, it's not really sustainable, and often people fall back to fast food. But with fruits, nuts, and also a lot of meat, you can just very quickly prepare it or not even have to prepare it at all. And this is way more sustainable because it doesn't like eat up your time, and a lot of people they don't have time to like cook for hours to make some special dish.
Yeah, and it's also more environmentally sustainable. Getting your food as whole foods, there's a lot less packaging involved, even from farm to the store.
Another big thing to note is a lot of cooking isn't that hard, even with like a little bit of vegetables and stuff. Like, don't be overwhelmed by the daunting task because you can. Honestly, there's a lot of 20-minute dishes you can do with little prep and have both a mix of vegetables and meat.
And
It's also considered brainless things like a curry. You just throw a bunch of vegetables and meat in, throw a bit of curry powder in, some coconut, whatever you want to base it on, and you're done. I don't really like curry.
yeah, that's too bad.
Easy to make, but not a fan.
One thing I eat pretty much every day is carrots. And the issue with carrots is that you have to pile them.
Can you pre-cook them?
No, I eat them raw every time. I don't like cooked stuff. Or at least not cooked carrots.
And boiled though?
I only eat the carrots raw, and of course potatoes I only eat them cooked and usually fried as well on a frying pan. And what I discovered, like even as a child, is that the best method is to slice them in oval slices, and then you just fry them very easily.
Pan fried?
You fry them in butter.
That sounds very nice.
Yeah, it's a nice food that fills you up.
Also a surprisingly low calorie carb, quote carb. 250 grams of potato is only about 120 calories, where the same amount of rice could be double that.
maybe this is a good thing for people looking to lose weight because often low-calorie foods are better in that respect.
Yeah. I feel like that's a common trope people say without like much basis on it other than, oh, just eat vegetables and you'll lose weight. I feel like adding more vegetables to your diet will make it so then you don't get as much calories while filling yourself up more often.
See, if I tried that, I'd coat all my veggies in oil and fats and fry them and cook them in the oven, and I'd end up putting on weight.
Yeah, you got to be careful on how you like cook the vegetables and stuff as well. Exactly.
Vegetables can be very, very tasty with a bit of oil.
But of course, if you don't have issues with your weight and you don't have to care about the stuff anyway, like me for example, I eat nuts pretty much every day, I don't have any issues.
If you eat a very balanced diet or like just generally eat whole foods, you'll sustain a very average weight for the most part. It's usually the sugar that causes a lot of problems and like very refined carb and like oftentimes they even mix like fat with the sugar so then you're loading in so much calories while spiking your insulin and just craving more in like 30 minutes sometimes even.
Yeah.
Yeah, technically
A vicious cycle.
you can of course gain weight on any diet in theory, it's just that in practice it's a lot easier to lose weight on certain diets than others.
Ideally, you don't want to put too many restrictions on your diet, but a big one to avoid is definitely a lot of sugar and like refined carbs. They're the worst out of all of them.
Yeah, I think one mistake people make is that they exclude whole food groups based on some diet, religion, like veganism or whatever. And it just makes everything harder for you because then you have less option for getting your nutrients. And in the case of veganism, you cannot even get all you need without supplementation. And the reason why I don't like this is that it's just not practical to take supplements every day. It's another thing in your routine. Then you have to figure out what supplements to buy. You have to hope that it's safe, it isn't contaminated or anything. And the more supplements you take, the more money you have to spend on it and research, trying to find the right supplements and hoping that you're not missing anything. And this is a big risk because if you know that your food is deficient in one thing, how do you know there isn't something else you're missing without realizing? And how do you know that the supplement is working as it should to fix the issue?
Veganism is just like downright bonkers. It's not the best, it's not sustainable. Vegetarianism, it's definitely a hassle still. It can make you have creative dishes that are yummy, but altogether, animal products are like one of the best things you can have in your diet.
Yeah, they are extremely useful for getting the nutrients you need, the protein you need. And you shouldn't make it harder for yourself. Similarly, I don't see any reason to like cut out plant foods unless you have some like specific issue with your health, like intolerances or whatever. But most people can handle them just fine.
Another thing about plant foods versus animal foods is plant foods, the nutrients are often less bioavailable, which means that even though a given food might contain, X amount of nutrient, you might only be able to absorb, 10% of that because the rest of it's like trapped up in these cellulose and lignin structures and our body can't break those down. So we never get them. But our bodies can completely break down animal products, so we get everything.
Another big thing if you're like struggling to get protein in your diet is protein powder is very good. You can blend it with like frozen berries and other things like kale and have like a very healthy drink on the go to like help fulfill more protein needs than like a typical sugar drink.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I've been putting in my coffee recently is PB2, which is powdered peanut butter. Basically pure protein and tastes like peanuts. Makes for a very nice coffee.
Because it cannot be stressed enough like how important protein is. Like especially if you're like starting your HRT, Like your body needs to like redevelop, and it's basically the building blocks to help get that all started.
Yeah, and without it, your body doesn't produce the signals to actually start the process. So, you might have all the fats and that you need, but without the protein, you don't have the building blocks nor the signaling to actually have any of it done.
The
I don't
next
know what
topic that we're going to cover is basic exercise. And I think the most important thing is that you do something at least daily. It can be very simple, like just going outside, and you don't have to like stress your body super hard. You don't have to run an ultra marathon or anything like that, but just do at least something to move yourself, do something every day, and you should be fine for the most part.
With the constant sedentary lifestyle we have, it is very important to move. At least for like 10 minutes to like an hour per day, you should be trying to do something that isn't just sitting around on your computer. That's like another problem is even like most people's work is like now just at home or like in a business chair, and like they never get up to be able to do stuff. Stretching can also be a pretty important factor, just so then, you don't lose mobility and then, not be able to like fully clean yourself in the shower and other things without like all these tools and other things, like a back scrubber.
Yeah, a surprisingly important biomarker for general health is the ability to touch your toes. If you can't touch your toes, something is wrong.
This is something
I
that
thought
could be extremely useful, is to have reliable biomarkers. I'm not sure if you really have that now or know what to look for, but if you have that, it's very easy to figure out what you're doing, if it's right or not. Of course, you can just see how you feel. If you're feeling good, it might be a sign that the diet is working. If you're feeling off, like have all these issues, then maybe you're doing something wrong and have to like try something else.
Yeah, I'd say a decent biomarker to know if you're like out of shape or should possibly like do a bit more physical activity is how well you can handle just like a flight of stairs, like 10 steps up.
Yeah. Everyone should be able to do that without pause, unless you're elderly or injured. And even if you're elderly, if you've kept fit, you'll still be able to do it.
Of course. And it takes so much of that for granted, being able to perform. I realized that maybe some males cannot even like perform in sex because they are too unfit to even like thrust back and forth, which is so embarrassing. Like, imagine that.
Yes, that's another
that's
important
obvious.
reason to do cardio is to be able to perform in bed and have a good sex time without like, basically falling over 2 minutes in because you can't thrust.
Imagine that, like that I will never have back from here again. He will like say that, oh sorry, I have a headache, you have to stop. And then she leaves you.
Honestly, I've seen like the reverse TikToks where the guys like get the woman try to emulate that like on TikTok, and they're like, come on, go faster, and then they like drop in a minute as well. It's a serious problem both ways. You gotta get your cardio up, and the sex can probably be more enjoyable.
You will actually
That'd be pretty-
notice, like, I think your sex itself, at least as a male when I'm over, it's actually a nice exercise because, like, you will feel afterwards the muscle soreness in that area and the muscles you used, so...
It'd be quite embarrassing if you couldn't even get yourself there and get tired before that.
Oh no.
Don't worry about the girl. You're too fat and slow to get yourself there.
Yeah, you just like fall down the stairs after her. When it comes to building muscles and strength, what you need here is, of course, you need protein even more, and nutrition all around is a lot harder and a higher bar because you need to build all this muscle and maintain them. And also you need to do much heavier exercises. I'm not sure if you really need to do that as a female. I think it can be good to build some muscle, some areas to look fit and good.
Working on your lower body can greatly improve your appearance as a female. You know, have a nicer ass, nicer legs.
Yes. And unless you're very pretty, it's probably a good idea to be able to like lift 50 pounds-ish. Just to be able to handle like most of your own furniture if you're not able to like get guys to help you all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, shit happens, right? You got to be able to move stuff.
I've been experiencing the muscle atrophy and it's a little hardcore. I'm still able to do 50 pounds, but hopefully I want to keep it that way.
Yeah, just maintaining your current level of strength on HRT is going to be a challenge, obviously.
Yeah, I felt myself get weaker, and it's a little bit sad that I have to like sometimes ask the guys for help with things I used to do. But it pisses me off even more when the things that I used to do and I ask like a guy to come over here to like try to help like and bitch out and be like, "Oh, we got to do it." So yeah, the problem I have sometimes is especially getting weaker on estrogen, like sometimes I used to do like very like overbearing tasks that were like a little bit too heavy for like the average person or average male or whatever, the working at minimum wage. And so now that I'm weaker, I am physically unable to do things I used to. And it's a little saddening. And so I have to ask like people for help. And sometimes the other guys can't even do it. And then we have to do it in like a slower, more tedious way. Like doing one crate at a time instead of like the 5 to 10 I had set up to like just slide in.
I struggled to open a jar of sauce last night. To emphasize this, I do powerlifting, but being on estrogen, my grip strength is just gone.
Yeah, this is why, by the way, you don't really see trans females win at the Olympics, for example. This has never happened. This is because HRT does affect your sex characteristics. It actually works in changing your sex. And as a consequence, you become weaker like a typical female, and you should not expect to get much advantage in sports over people born female, to be honest.
Yeah. It takes some time for it to all happen, but it'll constantly be battling against your muscles kind of thing. And that's how come, like, a lot of trans women shouldn't worry about, like, doing some minor, like, exercises in their upper body because chances are that'll just help maintain your muscles rather than, you know, make you look super muscular or anything like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't worry about that at all. If you have looked at, for example, female athletes, like muscles on female tend to look fine unless it's super grotesque, like if they're taking like big doses of steroids, of course it can look wrong, but just having some decent muscle as a female tends to look fine.
You can also focus more on strength training rather than like hypertrophy training, so you'll increase your strength more than your size. Low reps and high weight is how you do that. Like very low reps, 3 to 5 at the most, or even 1 to 3. And then your strength will go up, but you won't really see muscle growth.
Yeah, by the way, this might be true because there was this guy and it looked like he had way bigger muscles than me. So we will do this arm wrestling thing, and I didn't expect to have like much of a chance. And then we were starting, and I was like wondering did it start or not because I didn't feel much. And then I realized that it was like trying his hardest and it was like not even close. I was like without effort won, and my muscles don't even look that big.
Yeah, it's two different training. One's training purely for aesthetics, which, you know, power to them.
Yeah, it's probably because I used that method where I used high weight and not too many reps, and it probably worked because I'm actually fairly strong. And I didn't see much result from it, so I was wondering like did I gain much, but obviously I did.
Yeah.
One final note about carbohydrates is if you're not too active in your life, you may not need too many carbs in your life, but it's definitely more important when you do the fitness and activity in your life just to help fuel your body. If to have fitness and activity, you don't have to put high levels of fitness or activity, but an hour a day can help change your life a lot, help make you just feel better all around, and it can even help with like sleeping and stuff.
You will actually feel like moving sometimes if you haven't done it for a while. Like you will become restless and this is your body telling you to get out and move because you need it.
I think one of the biggest takeaways here is from this podcast that people should take is to listen to their body. We've evolved over millions of years to take care of ourselves. It should come naturally, and it does come naturally for the vast majority of people.
Yeah, instead of forcing yourself to eat or not eat certain foods because you read some dumb diet stuff. I actually loosely know about a person and she forced herself not to eat fruits and to do the like low carb stuff, and it isn't even working for her, but still she insists on not eating like fruits, and it isn't even supported on any evidence, by the way. It's just some religion stuff. And like a lot of those diets that are promoted are basically religions that people are following. It's like a modern religion. And I think the issue is that because nutrition science is so messy, it's so hard to do research and actually figure stuff out. People end up resorting to those fad diets or not evidence-based stuff because the science isn't very clear, so there's a lot of room for like interpretation and people having different opinions.
Yeah, there's a lot of bad studies out there, a lot of scam artists. Be careful if anyone calls themselves a nutritionalist. That's a bogus word that doesn't mean they have any sort of education. I'm pretty sure dietitian is the ones that have to do education to become such.
Yeah, there are so many people who promote diets on YouTube and stuff, and there are all kinds of stuff being promoted, and often the stuff that gets attention are the most extreme stuff. Like there are people who eat like raw meat and nothing else. And of course this is getting a lot of attention. Does it work? I don't know. Nobody has really studied it.
Yeah. There's this big issue with that for sure, where it's like, especially like when it comes to like the companies that try to push some of these like studies and stuff. Before it was like there was a big fad about how it was fat being the macronutrient that made you fat. And this is because a lot of sugar companies were just trying to promote the fat-free stuff, which is still just very unhealthy for you. A whole plethora of problems with just fat-free stuff. And now they're trying to change it. The new fad is keto. Everything's keto, and now it's like just basically it's like the big fat companies are getting back at sugar now, and both of them aren't the best. Who would have guessed that balanced lifestyle is better than all of this?
Yeah, you don't need to force yourself to cut out the whole food groups. There's no need for that. There's also no need to force yourself to eat stuff you don't like only because you're supposed to. Like for example vegetables, if you don't like them, you don't have to eat them. I think the main problematic thing to cut out is actually animal products if you do it very strictly. But like pretty much everything else is optional, and even with animal products there are so many options to choose from. You don't have to like force yourself to eat certain things if you don't want to. Another thing that can save you sometimes is the body converting, for example, beta carotene into retinol, but it also is not guaranteed to work 100%.
Yeah, and like, for example, the conversion between linalool and EPA and BHA omega-3 is atrocious. You convert like 0.1% of what you consume, so you'd have to consume well over your caloric intake to actually get your proper omega-3s. And some people, I think, do have like a higher rate of conversion, and so they'd have an easier time, but it's so.
So yeah, this is a big thing to watch out for, is that you cannot assume that only because your body in theory can convert into your essential nutrients, you're not guaranteed to actually get it. For example, vitamin D is an example of that, where your body might be able to make everything you need, or it might not be able to. For most people it shouldn't be a problem, but in certain circumstances it can be a problem.
Yeah, and this comes back to like eating intuitively. If you are craving something, it's probably best to listen to that craving, because your body's probably craving a nutrient that's in that.
I'd pinpoint this more so for like whole foods and stuff. If you are craving sugar, you probably have an addiction to sugar, and there is no nutritional value in like chocolate and candy and all that. Don't listen to your body if it's that. Try to resist the urge.
If you're craving sugar, you've got blood sugar issues.
So the next topic is weight cycling.
Okay, so like weight cycling, it's basically like optimizing like I guess your body fat or whatever, by like gaining weight and then losing it, basically while on the HRT. Like you have to make sure your levels are pretty decent before you do this, because if your levels aren't good on like as far as your E levels and your testosterone levels go, it might like, you know, make the fat go in a traditionally masculine place, like I don't know, like your gut, other places basically. So yeah, like usually once your levels are pretty decent, you want to go for like 10 pounds, like gain 10 pounds and then lose 10 pounds. But before you even start this, you want to have like be on like the lower side of the weight scale basically, for like you have like a clean slate as far as like masculine fat or like fat in masculine places basically.
Yeah, by the way, what evidence or like support do you have that this is like beneficial?
Well, honestly, it's more just like people saying that it has helped them. There's literally no like facts proving that it actually, for a fact, will change depending on person to person. But like usually,
so
I
this
think it's
is
on
maybe something you shouldn't bother with unless you're having like issues with like breast growth, and maybe then you should try it.
It's easier to like gain fat in your breasts and like your hips and butt via this way. But you could just gain weight and it should be in that place regardless too.
Yeah, I would heavily suggest, if you're having struggles with growing breasts, to make sure you check how much protein you're intaking and perhaps try to gain some weight. Don't go too excessive on being overweight, but you know, maybe test the limits, gain a few pounds, see what happens. Maybe genetics has screwed you over and you won't get breasts, but it's better to try and at least gain some weight to see if that's a factor that will help.
Definitely.
And you can also see, and this is maybe important, that you might actually become more attractive by gaining some weight over being as skinny as possible, to be honest. Because I think most males prefer having something to touch and grab on.
Yeah, it's good to find the right balance. Obesity is not good whatsoever. However, there's a good line of overweight where you can still be in like a healthy range, even though the BMI says otherwise.
In my opinion, it's between 20 and 25%.
Yeah, and also depending on your muscle mass, you might appear obese or overweight based on BMI just because you have built so much muscles. And of course, if you're female, you will have less muscles. But on the other hand, you are supposed to have more fat as a female.
This is why it's important to have like certain other biometrics to like calculate by, or for example, if you are that in depth with like bodybuilding to such a degree, there's better calculations to do that aren't BMI. There's ways to like calculate your body fat percentage, I'm pretty sure.
There's scales that just outright tell you these days. I've got one.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you've got low muscle mass, then maybe even 27 to 30% body fat could look good.
I just googled something. Apparently, you shouldn't eat grapefruit when you're trans because it has like weird interactions with like estradiol or something.
I think that would only really apply to oral. It would probably be inhibition of certain enzymes that like break down the estrogen. Actually, it's probably a good thing to eat it.
Really?
You get more of your estrogen.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I don't really know much about the science. I was Googling stuff here and there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Advice on that you get on the internet can be pretty dodgy.
There's like so much pseudoscience out there.
Oh, fuck.
Did you guys talk about the keto thing? Like, 'cause I know like.
Yeah,
Tesla
we
was talking
shall
about
talk
keto.
more about the keto thing. The issue I have is that it needlessly restricts your diet without any proven benefit. Like, if you try to find evidence for keto, like you not really find much. It can maybe help in some certain circumstances, but it's needlessly restrictive, hard to stick to, and has been shown to be better than a less restrictive diets.
What even is that diet? Is it just like eating fatty food or something? Or is it like no carbs?
Yeah, no
Heard
carbs,
like,
pretty much.
what is it
Yikes, what does that
originally,
even
like
mean?
80% fat and 5% carbs, and it kind of changed, I think, to maybe it was like only you needed like 60% fats and you can go up to 10% carbs, so I'm not sure what it even means at this point.
Yeah, so it basically means eating the amount of carbs that is required. So like if you use say 1500 calories in your day and you're consuming 1500 calories of carbs, your body will only use the carbs and it won't use the fats that you're eating, and it won't burn the fats on your body. The idea is to reduce this amount so that your body is forced to burn the fats that you're eating, and then your body gears the like quote machinery to actually burn the fats on your body as well. That's the idea.
Isn't
The
this
only proven benefit.
isn't the keto mostly weight loss diet anyway? It is the main appeal with low carb diet in general, why they are popular, is because people use them to lose weight. But if you're
Yeah,
not,
and it's very misleading as well. Like a lot of times, like it's very addicting to some people to like try to follow the fad. The problem is it's a very restrictive diet, so it's hard to maintain. So usually they see like the weight loss at the total start because like they're not eating as many carbs, so they essentially have a bit less water weight, kinda. It's a bit more
Is
than
it-
water, but it's like you need like the glucose to
The
help like
glycogen.
yes. Yes.
Isn't it like a crash diet? Like really restrictive diets are called crash diets.
Yeah, really, really caloric restrictive. Yeah, I think.
Like, okay, is there actually any benefit to dieting at all, really, or is it just like you have to be in like a calorie deficit to like lose weight? That's like the only purpose of it. Like, can being like a calorie deficit diet or whatever be healthy for you in the long term? Like, even if you are skinny or.
if you maintain a calorie deficit long enough, you will die.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Well,
if it's a
because
small
calorie
enough
deficit means that you will constantly be having less calories than your body needs. There will be a point where that will no longer happen because there's no more energy. Like your organs will start failing at a certain point of anorexia. However, if you're saying like, eat less but like stay at this calorie range, you'll probably like find your equilibrium at some point.
Yeah, so if you have your basal metabolic rate is 2500 calories and you eat 2000 calories, you'll lose weight to a point, but you won't actually lose weight to the point where you would have the metabolic rate of 2000 calories. Your body will like kind of become more efficient. I'll try and link some evidence for this in the description. But yeah, it causes less like metabolic stress.
And of course, as you lose weight, what tends to happen is that then your body will have less cells to maintain, less cells that burn energy. But this is why when people are doing weight loss, it might be easier initially when they have so much cells that just have to be maintained at all times, that generate all the heat, and all that heat is generated is the energy you are losing. You are actually burning calories while doing nothing. You can just lie on your bed and you will still burn calories, and your brain actually uses them as well.
Oh yeah, my mom told me this. So apparently, like when you're sleeping, you're fasting because you're not eating anything. So like when you eat breakfast, it's like called breaking your fast, basically. Isn't it like interesting?
Makes sense.
Yeah. I always wonder what the
Wait,
name was for. I'm like, oh.
If I recall correctly, fasting is better for like typically weight loss because you are forcing yourself to eat less often. As if you want to gain weight, usually you'd want to like eat more often.
Yeah, like intermittent fasting. Like I used to do that, but basically you only eat at a certain time of the day, and like any other time you don't eat anything.
I still try and intermittent fast for 18 hours, so it's not as restrictive. I have a 6-hour window where I can eat, but
Mhm.
that I still eat outside of that window on a lot of days. Like, this is not worth
It's
it
like
to restrict
it's
yourself
really
so
it's
much.
really hard. I mean, I guess like it definitely has like lessened my appetite a lot doing it. Cause like it's to a point where like sometimes like you get condition yourself to not even want to eat at certain times. Basically, like it just like naturally you're not gonna want to eat. Basically, I think that's like the mindset of it. I think.
It can also help your body gear into ketosis for like the keto idea. The ketosis is where you're actually burning fats.
But
Did you guys talk about veganism yet?
we did go into that, and the issue is that it's needlessly restrictive, and you will get nutrient deficient without supplementation. Like either
And then most people
via
do it for like the morals of it. Like they think that they're saving the animals, even though they're like one person.
yeah, it's kind of dumb, but many people don't know it that even with plant food, there's actually a lot of animal killed in making that as well.
Really? Like in the fertilizers and stuff? Or like whatever?
Yeah, there are like animals being like when they harvest stuff, and sometimes they are killing the animals just to keep them away.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
So it's like regardless of what you do, like there is no way
Yeah.
to like produce food without like an impact. Like especially with like billions of people, of course, there being a price to pay for that because humans are very dominant, and because we are so dominant, other animals are paying a price. But at least with farming, the animals can survive. For example, chickens and cows are very successful, way more successful than other like wild animals. Like at least with some animal farming, the animals have a decent life prior to like being slaughtered. So sure, you can say that no, maybe it's wrong to kill or whatever, but like if you look at it more rationally, like if you see the animal kingdom, like even in the wild, like animals are being killed all the time, hunted, and like they have to run away from the predators, and then maybe some don't make it and get eaten alive. So
Yeah,
like,
I honestly never understood like the moral side of veganism because it's exactly that where it's like who gets the better trade-off in the one individual, it's not a person technically, gets a life of all the food, the shelter and the water they need to live a happy life and they don't have any worries really and possibly an untimely death, or would you rather have 250 chicken strips and like dozens of eggs? I don't know. I think I think a whole lifetime of happiness is pretty damn good. I think they got the better trade-off here.
In Australia, most of the cows in the farms here, it's like less than 1 cow per square kilometer. Like, to say that this is like cruel is just ridiculous. They're on like thousands, like hundreds of thousands of hectares. They're basically wild animals.
yeah, it's actually a very good treatment of animals. So there are ways to eat meats that are not cruel to animals, and I think this is good enough, to be honest.
So it's like the transmaxing meta on like food. Like, what diet do you guys recommend like for like the ideal transition and like transmaxing journey?
Yeah, what you need to find is that you need to find foods that you like eating that are good for you. There are like nuts, there are fruits, there is meat, vegetables,
We
whatever
we
you
don't
like.
suggest anything too restrictive. The biggest thing is we do suggest you get a minimum amount of protein to help actually like develop your body. if you don't get enough protein, you won't actually like develop.
That's so true.
Absolutely. And that also ties into exercise a bit, in the same vein that like eating protein increases the signaling for like growth and development. Physical exercise does the same thing. So eating a high protein diet, being physically active will enhance your transition.
That's true. That's
But
interesting.
yeah, it's honestly better to have less restrictions in your diet just so then you're not like wanting to cheat and like going overboard and stuff and like not caring. It's better to be more understanding about the calories in and the calories out in your whole daily life. A good thing you can look up is caloric demand and find like a calculator to see how many calories you need. So then you can be like more mindful, especially if you want to gain or lose weight or to make sure you're like, on average with your eating, which most people are if they don't like focus on their lifestyle. You find an equilibrium at some point.
Yeah, you don't have to force yourself to eat foods you dislike just to like be healthy. You don't need to do that at all. There are so many healthy food options out there that taste good, that look nice. You don't even have to pay too much for it. Just have to find what works for you, and this is different for every individual. Like everyone has different foods that they dislike and like. Like for example, you might not like vegetables, and then you have to find those nutrients somewhere else.
I guess a big stance that would be like pretty much certified transmaxing is avoid alcohol. It'll give you visceral fat. It's very much unhealthy, ruins your liver, and doesn't really give any nutrition whatsoever.
100% true. What about phytoestrogens? Do you think it's like worth eating, or like would you say it's just like pointless even trying to eat like foods with phytoestrogens in them? Like I don't know, sort and shit.
With phytoestrogen is inferior to real estrogen, so I don't see the point. Like it's at best it's useless, at worst it will just mess up your HRT.
I feel like it's a cope if you can't have HRT to try it and like feel like you're doing something, but I do agree it's like virtually useless. I was consuming bovine ovary for years as a supplement and getting no results compared to HRT.
Rip.
Yeah,
So
you
even
need a real
supplements with the HRT,
thing.
it's pointless. You guys would say.
Just get real HRT and stop wasting your time.
Exactly.
Okay. Apparently, eating a lot of meat can like raise your testosterone levels. Do you think like transmaxers should like reduce your like meat eating or whatever?
Is there any
Like even
evidence
if
of
they
that
still
at
eat it, but like
all?
not like eat as much.
Like, I haven't researched it, but like with testosterone, like if you are like on monotherapy, it shouldn't even be a problem in the first place, and it isn't a poison either, and at least not in the levels you have as a typical female, which you will get from monotherapy, so I don't see why you have to worry about testosterone in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, that probably is like more based on your sex characteristics as well, Someone who's like more predominantly on testosterone may get more benefit out of that than someone more predominant on estrogen.
Okay. Would you say it's like more better to like gain weight or lose weight as far as transitioning goes? Do you think like as far as like eating goes, like should you like the ideal like I guess transvaxing meta be like should you ideally try to gain more weight to look more feminine, or should you try to lose more weight to look more feminine?
In general, this will depend on where you are, but I don't think you should be too skinny. You shouldn't look anorexic or even close. So I think it's generally better to have more stuff for people to touch, like your breasts, your hips, or whatever you want fatty or to look feminine.
I don't know if it's ideal or not, but it's probably better to start off a little bit on the skinnier side and then progressively gain weight as you do your HRT regimen to see the growth.
I 100% agree. Like I think that's like the best like I think goal like to like try to lose weight before you start estrogen, and then like once you start estrogen, like once your levels are decent, like start gaining weight. And if you feel like you're like, you know, ready to start weight cycling, you could do that as well, but it's not necessarily always necessary, whatever.
Yeah, I think the feminization mostly comes from having the protein and stuff you need to build the breasts and everything. And also obviously the
Yeah.
HRT has to work. And the
Very-
genetics as well.
My experience has for sure been that where I maintained the same weight and my body just changed over time. So I can agree that I don't think it's too necessary to start at somewhere and end at somewhere, but I'd say to always like test out different things if something's not working.
Okay, this marks the end of episode 22 of the Transmaxxing podcast. Make sure to write your opinions below regarding your favorite diets and point out if you were wrong about anything. Have a nice day forward and like or dislike the video.